Before the lights, before the sold-out concerts, and before the name 2Baba echoed through every corner of Africa, there was a girl. Her name was Annie Macaulay. They met when dreams were louder than doubts and love was simple. No paparazzi, no hashtags, just two young souls navigating Lagos, hungry for something more. He was innocent idibia then, a boy from Benue sleeping in studio corners, chasing the echo of sound through broken speakers and dusty equipment. She was Annie, an actress in the making, with eyes full of hope and a heart that beat only for him. No one saw them then, but they saw each other. It was raw. It was real. It was the kind of love that doesn't check timelines or bank accounts. While the world was still tuning in to find out who he was, she had already given him a front-row seat in her heart. He would come back to her with scratched demos and half-written lyrics, and she would sit, quietly listening, head nodding in rhythm, whispering, "It's going to be big." She believed in him when there was barely anything to believe in. When the Plantation boys came alive, she was there. When they fell apart and 2Face was born, she didn't flinch. She stood by the fire and let it warm her even when the flames got too close. Then came the song, African Queen. The world sang along. DJs played it on loop. Radios couldn't stop spinning it. The continent fell in love with the voice. What most people didn't know was that behind that song, behind the lyrics that melted hearts across Africa, there was a muse. Annie. She was the reason the melody carried so much weight. Every line was layered with the history they shared, the fights, the laughter, the sacrifices. "You are my African queen, the girl of my dreams," wasn't just a lyric, it was his truth. But success has a way of changing the rhythm. Fame doesn't walk in alone, it brings temptation, attention, and chaos. As the name 2Baba grew louder, so did the whispers. Other women, children from different mothers, tabloids flashing headlines, rumors thick as smoke. But through it all, Annie held on. She cried in silence, smiled through interviews, stood beside him when she had every reason to walk away. Because in her heart, she wasn't holding on to a celebrity. She was holding on to the boy who once walked barefoot to her house with nothing but dreams in his pocket and fire in his chest. People judged her. "Why does she stay?" they asked. "Doesn't she see what he's doing?" What they didn't understand was that Annie wasn't blind. She saw everything. But love, when it runs that deep, doesn't always run away. She wasn't naive. She was loyal. And loyalty, in a world full of flashing lights and empty promises, is rare. When he finally asked her to marry him in 2012, the world cheered. But Annie, she didn't smile because of the cameras or the ring. She smiled because, after all the detours, he had come home. It felt like a victory, a reward for patience, for pain endured quietly, for nights spent praying and hoping. Their wedding was grand, Dubai lights, celebrity guests, fairy tale moments. It looked like the perfect ending. But what no one knew then was that the ending was still miles away. In fact, a new chapter was about to begin. Because even though she had the title of wife, Annie would soon learn that titles don't always come with peace. And sometimes, the man you've waited for your whole life might still be searching for something else. What began as a love story between a dreamer and a believer was slowly becoming something else. Something messier, something realer, something the world would watch, dissect, and remember, not just for the music, but for the heartbreak behind it. The wedding was over. The rings were exchanged. The promises were sealed. And just like that, Annie Macaulay officially became Annie Idibia. To the world, it was a happy ending. The girl who stood by 2Baba when he had nothing had finally become his wife. It felt right. It looked right. But beneath the glimmering surface of their fairy tale, quiet cracks had already begun to form. Marriage, for most people, is a new beginning. For Annie, it felt like an extension of the battlefield. Nothing had truly changed. The world still spun around 2Baba, and she still felt like she was watching him orbit other planets, other women, other children, other versions of himself that she could never quite reach. She tried to adjust. She told herself that this was the price of loving a legend, that the rumors, the co-parenting chaos, the fan comments, the side glances, were all part of the package. But the human heart can only take so much, and Annie's heart had already weathered too many storms. There were birthdays he missed, texts that came in too late, trips she didn't know about, and women who seemed too comfortable around the man she called her husband. She began to feel like a guest in her own marriage, welcomed in some rooms, shut out of others. Her eyes learned to smile while her soul stayed quiet. The world saw glamour, but Annie was living in a shadow. She wasn't just dealing with infidelity, she was battling invisibility. At times, it felt like she was competing not just with other women, but with a version of 2Baba that didn't belong to her anymore. The boy who used to whisper dreams into her ear was now a man she barely recognized. And yet, she loved him. That was the most painful part. Even when she was hurting, even when her instincts screamed for her to leave, she stayed. She stayed through the interviews where she had to pretend everything was fine. She stayed through the award ceremonies where the cameras caught her smile, but not the way her hand trembled. She stayed when silence grew louder than music. There were moments when 2Baba tried. He apologized. He showed up. He kissed her forehead and told her she was his everything. But consistency was a song he hadn't mastered. He gave her moments when she needed presence. He gave her gestures when she needed change. Annie began to lose herself. In trying to hold the marriage together, she loosened her grip on her own identity. She wasn't just 2Baba's wife. She was a woman who had dreams too, feelings too, worth too. But the spotlight rarely shined on her. It always found him. Over time, their home became quieter. Conversations became shorter. The love that once roared now whispered, then sighed, and eventually paused. It wasn't one big fight that tore them apart. It was a slow erosion, a little at a time, until there was barely anything left to fight for. And even though she wore the crown, Annie had never felt less like a queen. It happened without warning. No press statement, no prior hints, no gentle transition, just one post. One cryptic message that sent shockwaves through the internet on a quiet January morning in 2025. It was from 2Baba's official Instagram account, a black background, white text, cold and final. "We've been separated for a while now. Please respect our privacy." At first, fans didn't believe it. They thought it was a prank, or maybe his account had been hacked. After all, this was 2Baba and Annie, Nigeria's iconic couple, the ride-or-die love story everyone rooted for. But within hours, 2Baba posted a video. No music. No filters. Just him, looking older than usual, tired, like a man who had been carrying something too heavy for too long. In a calm, almost resigned voice, he confirmed it. The separation was real. It wasn't sudden. It had been coming for a while. They had just chosen to keep it away from the cameras. And with that, the illusion shattered. For fans, it was the end of an era. For Annie, it was the end of a dream she had sacrificed so much to hold on to. The comments poured in. Some people blamed him, others blamed her. The internet turned their marriage into a public trial. Memes, think pieces, opinions from strangers who had never known the private storms behind the public smiles. But for Annie, this wasn't content. This was heartbreak. She had given years, loyalty, dignity, and silence to protect the image of the man she loved. And now, she was alone. Again, only this time, the whole world was watching. 2Baba didn't speak ill of her. He didn't rant or drag her name. But his silence still felt loud. He moved with a kind of freedom she didn't have. He was already back in the studio, already smiling at interviews. She, on the other hand, was left to explain, to cry, to heal publicly. In her own statement, Annie didn't beg. She didn't fight. She simply said, "I gave it everything I had, but sometimes love alone is not enough." That line echoed across social media like a final verse to a sad song. Their daughters, beautiful, bright-eyed, caught in between, became the unspoken victims of a story they didn't write. And yet, life didn't pause. As the headlines slowly shifted to other scandals, something else began to rise quietly in the background. A different name, a different woman. Her name was Natasha. At first it seemed like gossip, a whisper here, a photo there. But soon, the pieces started to come together. There were hints of dinners, private events, quiet appearances. Then came the leaks, pictures of them smiling, laughing, holding hands, a proposal video, a traditional wedding. And just like that, while Annie was still recovering from the ashes of what was, 2Baba was already lighting a new fire. The question echoed across the nation. Had he truly moved on? Or had he already moved long before the world found out? Either way, the story had shifted. A new chapter was unfolding, and its name was Natasha. They called her the surprise twist. But to those who had been watching closely, she wasn't a twist. She was a build-up, one that had been silently growing in the background while everyone focused on Annie. Her name was Natasha Osawaru. Young, bold, politically connected, beautiful in that quiet, magnetic way that didn't beg for attention, yet couldn't be ignored. She wasn't a celebrity. She didn't chase cameras. She didn't post thirst traps or emotional threads. She was a woman of ambition, a rising star in the Edo State House of Assembly. While Annie had built her brand beside a musician, Natasha had built hers on legislation, leadership, and low-profile class. No one expected her to be the one. Not after all that history with Annie. Not after the public vows and the whirlwind wedding in Dubai. Not after the years of Annie holding the title of the chosen one, the queen, the survivor. But then came the whispers. At first, it was just talk. Social media users noticed a certain pattern, a certain frequency, events that seemed coincidental, appearances that were accidental. Eyes caught them standing too close at a charity dinner, a soft laugh, a lingering glance. The way Natasha placed her hand on his back as they exited a hall. Then came the video. Then the pictures came. A traditional marriage ceremony in Benue State. Natasha, radiant in red and gold, her hair wrapped like royalty, her smile wide and unmoved. 2Baba by her side, looking 10 years younger, dressed in traditional agbada, his eyes fixed on his new bride. No stage lights, no celebrity guests this time. It was intimate, intentional, grounded. He didn't need the world this time. He just needed her. And in that quiet celebration, many saw the truth they had avoided for years. 2Baba had finally let go of Annie. And he hadn't done it by walking away. He had done it by walking into something new. But who was Natasha, really? Born into a politically influential family in southern Nigeria, Natasha Osawaru grew up with ambition in her veins. Her father had been a local chief, her mother a women's rights advocate. She had attended university abroad, returning to Nigeria with a law degree and a fire to change things from the inside. It wasn't leaked, it wasn't grainy or shaky, it was intentional, clear, beautifully lit. A private room, candles flickering, soft music playing. 2Baba dropping to one knee with a ring in his hand. Her gasp, her tears, the yes, the embrace. It was posted to her page first, no captions, just the moment. The internet froze. People thought it was a music video, others thought it was a prank. But then 2Baba reposted it with 5 words. She said yes. Forever starts now. He had proposed, and not just proposed, he had done it publicly. Something he never did with Annie. Within hours, the video hit 1 million views. Congratulations poured in. Others were confused, outraged, heartbroken on Annie's behalf. She hadn't said a word, but her silence was louder than any reply. Then the pictures came. A traditional marriage ceremony in Benue State. Natasha, radiant in red and gold, her hair wrapped like royalty, her smile wide and unmoved. 2Baba by her side, looking 10 years younger, dressed in traditional agbada, his eyes fixed on his new bride. No stage lights, no celebrity guests this time. It was intimate, intentional, grounded. He didn't need the world this time. He just needed her. And in that quiet celebration, many saw the truth they had avoided for years. 2Baba had finally let go of Annie. And he hadn't done it by walking away. He had done it by walking into something new. But who was Natasha, really? Born into a politically influential family in southern Nigeria, Natasha Osawaru grew up with ambition in her veins. Her father had been a local chief. Her mother, a women's rights advocate. She had attended university abroad, returning to Nigeria with a law degree and a fire to change things from the inside. In the male-dominated world of politics, she carved space with poise, not noise. She spoke with clarity. She moved with precision. And beneath her polished exterior was a steel spine that didn't bend easily. Perhaps that's what drew 2Baba to her. He had spent years with chaos, scandals, noise. Maybe Natasha represented the one thing he hadn't had in a long time: stability. To some, she was the villain. Homewrecker, they called her. Opportunist. They said she had waited until Annie's guard was down, then swooped in. They said she used her political power to win a love battle she hadn't earned. But others saw it differently. They said Natasha was the calm after the storm, that she didn't steal anything. She just stepped into a space that had long been empty. She didn't fight Annie. She didn't throw shade. She didn't gloat. She stayed quiet, focused, present. She held his hand, not his past. And for the first time in years, 2Baba seemed at peace. There were no drama-filled interviews, no cryptic Instagram posts, no apology tours. Just a man and a woman, figuring it out away from the crowd. Of course, the tabloids couldn't let it go. They tried digging up dirt, alleged text messages, unverified claims. Sources close to the couple said this, others said that. But Natasha didn't flinch. She didn't respond. She simply carried on, attending meetings, launching youth empowerment projects, and being present in 2Baba's life with a kind of elegance that didn't beg for approval. Their public debut as husband and wife came at a music benefit in Lagos. 2Baba performed. Natasha stood beside the governor's wife, clapping, smiling, regal. The cameras panned to her. She didn't wave. She didn't pose. She just nodded. And that one nod said everything. She was here to stay. But even as this new chapter bloomed, shadows of the past lingered. Annie posted a photo one evening, just a sunset and the words, "Healing takes time. So does silence. No names, no anger, just ache and understanding." Everyone knew who it was for, because while 2Baba was moving on, Annie was still learning how to stand still in the aftermath. There's no clean way to transition from one great love to another. No map, no rules, just choices. And 2Baba had made his. He didn't erase Annie. He simply closed her chapter. Now, Natasha held the pen. Whether their love would stand the test of time, whether it would outlast the spotlight or bend beneath it, no one could say. But for now, the music legend had a new queen. Not born from the fire, but chosen in peace. And sometimes, peace is the loudest love story of all. What do you think about this 2Baba's marriage to Natasha?